Hi, welcome to Memory Chips Podcast. I am Ann Wyszynski, and I have a collection of potato chip bags from around the world. And every so often, I go through this collection, and a certain bag or bags will bring up memories of people, places, ideas, and I really want to share these with you. So if you please subscribe, you will never miss a bag. One of the most exciting things about starting this podcast is that I got to become friends with one of my role models, Sarah Cohen of Route 11 potato chips in the Shenandoah Valley. So these are my favorite local potato chips. And so we met and I showed her some of my bag collection.
Oh wow!
And then everything else is just
cheeseburger
and warm sandwich and this and that.
Wow.
Just like crazy flavors. But I was dying to find out how Sarah got into potato chips in the first place, and also how she chooses flavors. So we got down to the business of talking about that. So, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. I was wondering if you could just introduce yourself.
Okay. I'm Sarah Cohen, and I am the founder and president of Route 11 Potato Chips.
I wonder if it's context specific, right? When you wouldn't introduce yourself to somebody out of context and say, I'm the founder.
Never, right. And I could have been more, I could have just said, I've been making potato chips for 30 years or whatever. But I think I was feeling official. So I said the founder and president.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's not that. I think what I was wondering is because so far our conversations have been about potato chips. Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering if outside of potato chips, when you just meet people, how much do you identify with yourself as that?
That's a good question. Yeah. Well, if somebody asks me what I do, like if somebody just asks what I do, I always sort of stall out because I know the reaction when I tell them is going to be shock, or they won't get it, or they'll think it's not often that you hear somebody say, I make potato chips.
Right.
And I never just, I'm like, I make potato chips, and I don't usually talk about it too much, or because the reaction is always, everybody is always just
incredulous.
Yeah. And they're just like, what?
Well, that's sort of why I asked that, is because, so you've been making them since 1992.
Yeah.
So that's a long time. Mm-hmm. So I think I think people get, they think, oh, interesting, because I think that people wonder why. How did you get into that? Like why potato chips?
Right.
Sort of, which I'm curious about too. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm just wondering, like when you started it, you were probably in your 20s?
Yeah, I was in my 20s. Yeah, and and just one thing that is funny, because when I do tell people I make potato chips, the first thing they say is, "Oh, in your garage." So there is this kind of weird entrepreneurial projection, like, and I'm like, well, 30 years ago, it was like we were smaller than garage level, I mean, we were in business, but had we been any smaller, we would have been, cooking them on our stove at home.
So why potato chips?
So, I mean, it's a long story, and I have not figured out a way to distill it down. And I don't know how much Anne, because it's an insane story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it involves, it was not a trajectory I was ever on. If somebody had told me when I was 18 that this is what I was going to be doing for my life, I would have just said, no way. Yeah. There's just no way. Okay. I mean, I don't even know what you're talking. I don't even like potato chips. I'm a city person. I'm not going to be living in rural Virginia. Yeah. Okay. None of it would have made sense to me, but it just was, this is what happens when you're not one of those super kind of ambitious people that has an idea of what they want to do. You can get kind of caught up in, I feel like, I grew up in a family business in DC, and we were at a hotel and restaurant. And so I was around food and I liked food. And so that part of it makes sense to me. But I was really, I can tell you the story. Okay, so I actually wanted to be a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And so my family, we have a restaurant in DC. We had a farm out here in Warren County where we grew vegetables for our restaurant in DC. And we had, we had this amazing woman who was doing biodynamic growing. And this is way before, this is like in the early 80s. So before people even cared about where their food came from or knew or anything. So my dad was really into organic agriculture, and there was a farmer who had just put a bunch of potatoes. He'd just been contracted by two brothers from Clark County. I know, it gets very local. Yeah. And I'm, when this is happening, I'm in college in Colorado. Oh, okay. So my dad meets his farmer. He's just planted all these potatoes, and he's another organic farmer. And so they're talking, and it turns out that the farmer has just found out that the brothers that contracted him were busted for dealing cocaine and put in jail. So when you're a farmer and you've got 30 acres of potatoes that are in the ground, and you have no market planned for them, then you're freaking out. Yeah. So my dad, who was a meat and potatoes guy, and also a visionary that actually pursued when he'd have a vision, he actually kind of, for better or worse, pursued it. And he thought, we could make potato chips we could do an organic potato chip, he still had a couple months before they were going to harvest the potatoes. So he went and up to Pennsylvania, found this little Amish potato chip factory and got some packaging made, and they launched Tabard Farm potato chips. My family's restaurant and hotel's called the Tabard Inn. It's down near DuPont Circle. So that was the beginning. This is the prequel to Route 11. Okay. So I had no interest. I rolled my eye. I was just like, okay, I don't know what you guys are doing.
What were you studying?
I was an English major. Okay. And I
wanted to be a filmmaker.
I wanted to be a filmmaker. English? Yeah, but again, I really should have done art history. But again, this is what happens when you don't have a mentor, or you're not laser focused on one thing. And my parents were actually marketing. They decided they launched this brand. And we're going and knocking on doors and doing very mom and pop style marketing and selling. Well, a friend of theirs saw an ad in the Washington Post for a potato chip factory for sale in Waldorf, Maryland. And my parents decided they were going to buy this little chip factory. And they had zero experience in manufacturing. And again, I was standing still too long, and they said, Sarah, we're buying this factory. And by the way, your mother's just sold, 6,000 tubs of chips to Williams-Sonoma. Oh, so we actually have an order for you to do. And this little chip factory was called Chesapeake Chips. Uh-huh. And it was a turnkey operation. It came with the guy who made the chips, and his wife who hand-bagged them.
Why did they sell it? If they had an operation, were they just not good at
it's just hard. Yeah, they couldn't make it. I mean, it was just hard. It's very hard to make it in the chip business. Yeah. And especially when you're small. Right. And so I go down to Maryland, and I'm being, at this point, I told my parents, I said, okay, I'm going to help you out for a year. I'm going to do this, but you need to know, because at that point, I had decided I wanted to move out to Washington State. and that I wanted to do film, I said, but I'll help you for this year. And once the year was over, I had mixed emotions about it. Like I really enjoyed making the product. I enjoyed doing something tangible like that. But it was also hard. I also had given up my my social life in DC. I mean, I'd given up, I felt isolated and not happy. And I thought this is not really what I want to be doing, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to just keep doing it now until I know.
By default.
I'll just do it. And, maybe because after the Williams-Sonoma run, we got all this love mail about how great the chips were. And and so it was like, this was kind of
likes.
Yeah, right. At the time,
likes.
I know we got a ton of likes. And so I thought, I could keep doing this. I mean, there were so many mental crossroads, like in inner dialogues with myself. I could keep doing this, but just not in Southern Maryland. I could do it in the Shenandoah Valley. I knew that I could do it out here. I was familiar with this because this is where our farm was. And I just thought it was that it just made logistically more sense. And I didn't have to be a genius to figure that out. But I just intuitively felt that this would be a good place to do it. Mm-hmm. And that's when in 1992, we launched Route 11 potato chips. Mm-hmm. And again, it's been this kind of accidental crusade the whole way.
Okay.
And
so it sounds like your family with this restaurant and the farm already had a certain worldview about either organic farming. Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't sound like because to do something with that sort of value, like you said, in the 90s or whatever was ahead of its time, and you didn't know that it was going to be, super trendy,
right?
Laid next to other things. But one thing I wanted to ask you, this has nothing to do about the origin story or anything, but it does have to do with the flavor.
We had the flavors. We kind of knew our flavors from day one. I mean, we knew that there were certain flavors, if you were a potato chip company, that you had to have, okay, right? Everybody has to have a regular. We call our regular lightly salted.
Right.
So we had a regular, a barbecue. Yeah. I mean, that's just, you have to have a barbecue. And this is what, so it didn't take much thinking, right?
Right, yeah.
We had to have a salt and vinegar.
Uh-huh. See, that's so weird that you say that, because I never saw salt and vinegar potato chips until I was at least 40.
Really?
Yeah.
So, well, at the time...
It might not have been... It might be an East Coast thing. I think in the Midwest, salt and vinegar was too much. Too much.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, so we kind of knew that much. Mm-hmm. And then we branched out. We also did sour cream and chive was one of our original, because we knew we had to have, at the time, that was just what other people had. Right. So we were just like, okay. So we developed our own seasonings. We wanted minimum, we knew we wanted a healthy seasoning. And, potato chips are notorious for having ingredients. MSG. Yeah, just a ton of stuff. We didn't want MSG, and really try to develop flavors with as few ingredients as possible. Yeah. And that turned out to be a really good call on our part for so many different reasons. But the flavors that we were more innovative with, we did our crab chips.
Right.
And that was based on the one flavor in the Mid-Atlantic region that, where there's that people love, where that is a distinct to the Mid-Atlantic is that Old Bay seasoning.
Okay. So did you do that because you liked it, or did you do it because you thought it would sell, or did you do it because you wanted to establish yourself as a Mid-Atlantic company?
Yeah, all three.
All those things.
But there's no in between though for that flavor.
Exactly.
And we have people drive down from Baltimore to the factory, and they're like, I could brush my teeth with your crab chips.
Yeah.
And very hardcore. But so that is our most controversial flavor. Mm-hmm. Then we felt like we needed a spicy chip. we came up with Mama Zuma's Revenge,
Yeah.
which has a very intense cult following and a fun package. And and most recently, and this is I would say there are only so many flavors you can have, right, as a chip company.
Yeah.
Because
Let's
they
talk
don't.
about that in a minute.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But what I want to say is our most recent flavor that we've come up with, which I'm very proud of, is simple, and it only has 2 ingredients. But we're using this incredible salt from West Virginia called JQD salt, and that in itself is an amazing story. And I knew as soon as I saw it and tasted it that this was going to be what we were looking for. But we were doing a salt and pepper chip.
Mm-hmm. Saw that. And
a lot of salt and pepper chips have like 20 ingredients, including sugar, MSG, garlic powder.
Yeah.
And we just wanted something that was just salt and pepper. But that was our newest flavor. That's our newest flavor.
For me, as somebody who collects potato chip bags, like a bajillion flavors is the best thing for me. However, if you're going to eat potato chips, if you're not collecting potato chips bags, like there is no reason to have a bajillion flavors because none of them taste like anything. I mean, they're just novelty things. And that's actually one thing that I wanted to ask you about is, okay, I brought this because I wanted to discuss this with you and weigh in on it. Okay. So I'm holding this Lay's Wavy limited time flavor, which is Funyuns flavor. Okay, so a Funyun is just an extruded goo with onion seasoning on it, or like onion seasoning. And it doesn't have that many ingredients, but a lot of them are sugar and monosodium glutamate, dextrose. Anyway, so how is this chip any different from an onion flavored chip? And they also have you seen these?
No.
Okay, so they also have ones that are Cheetos flavor. Okay. Which is just a chip with Cheeto flavor.
Right.
So that's cheese.
Right.
So they're just basically making onion flavored chips, cheese flavored chips. They already have these. I don't know why this irritates me so bad. It irritates the fuck out of me. Yeah. Okay, what does this say about us as a country that we would be either duped into thinking like, wow, this is a new flavor and grab it, or just the fact that it's just like shiny new thing? Or do people actually, my other question is, do you think people actually buy this if they weren't collecting potato chip bags? Would somebody buy that and say, I want Funyuns flavor potato chips?
Yeah, I think
Wouldn't
it's the cool new factor. Like I think American consumers, and the thing that we always get whenever we're out and about is like, what's new? Do you have a new flavor? What's new? There's this, everybody's looking for something new.
Right. So you obviously thought through your flavors. And do you think that these potato chip companies are driving people's taste, or do you think people's taste drive the, like, do you know what
people's taste drive the potato chip company? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so the one flavor that I forgot to mention to you, which was our like innovative moment, was a dill pickle. You know, we were the first ones ever to do a dill pickle flavored chip. There was no other dill pickle on the market. And now there's like, 30 dill pickles and of different varying kinds. And at the time, that dill pickle really came to mind because I love pickles and I loved the pickle juice, melding with my grilled cheese and potato chips. Do you know what I mean? Like it was pickles are huge. Have now like they're
fermented
everybody's marketing.
It's
huge. And our dill pickle was it preceded that. Again, we were a little bit too ahead of our time to cash in on it, but basically with these people in these big companies like Lay's, they have these flavor laboratories where you can probably get a 6-figure salary.
I want that.
That's the job you should get. Yeah. I think what they're trying to do, everybody's just trying to sell more product.
So I'm just wondering, like in Sweden and the US and whatever, where they try to have as many flavors as possible, is there something about the national character or whatever where that kind of branding, that kind of marketing sort of, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. Like, what does this say about us as people and our buying habits that this kind of marketing works? Or are we manipulated by this marketing? Like, or do we not have an attention span because this exists and we're like, you have to have that?
Right.
You know, I mean, I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I think the goal, okay, so the snack food aisle is the highest. I mean, so potato chips have what they call velocity in the business. They fly off the shelves faster than other products. Okay. So it's super competitive because when you walk down the snack aisle, or a customer does, they're going to have to choose what they want to put in their basket. And they might, Lay's right now, if you go into a supermarket in the U.S., Lay's has 75% of the products. Right. So they've got it. They also have to keep their section filled, and rotate stuff and keep things fresh and interesting. But I think Americans are, I think they want to discover new things. I think to them, not to them, or to us, it's taking a chance and discovering something different. This is as far as food goes. This is so classically American.
I assume that there one bag per adventurous person is what goes off the shelf of this flavor.
Right.
I bet nobody goes, I'm going to buy more Funyuns Lay's.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
I think it's let's say you're going shopping. Let's say you're on your way to buy a bag of Utz potato chips or something, and then you see this and it says Funyuns on it. Yeah. So you're, and not to use a cliched word, but you're kind of interrupting potentially another purchase. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I think they're out there. They're baiting people to get away, to try something other than their regular go-to.
Okay. Do you think that there is creativity, but it just gets nixed in the lab or in the advertising because they say, that's not going to sell, or they can't find a context for it in order to market it? Because I can think of a million flavors. My friends and I talk about it where we are okay, if you could make a chip flavor, what would you do? Because in Turkey, they have my favorite Doritos flavor is poppy seed and sun-dried tomato. Doritos.
Oh, wow.
They're so good. Well, they stopped making them. In Turkey, they were called a la turca. And they were just so those were really great. But then we were the potato chips are always just this spicy ketchup, whatever. They don't have, and then there's one that's good that's yogurt and mixed herbs. That one's actually really good. And we'd talk about flavors, and I'm like, somebody needs to make an imam bayıldı, which is eggplant. It's an eggplant dish. And somebody's I want Iskender kebab, which is lamb, tomato sauce, garlic, butter.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? It's just and pita. Where somebody's need to make that. And I just thought, why wouldn't you? And then, so that was years ago, 10 years ago, we were talking about that. And then suddenly, I moved to Sweden, and then they did have those flavors. And in England, they have those flavors too, whole meals or dishes, entire dishes. Yeah. And I didn't see that. Still haven't really seen it in the U.S. except for occasionally did those chefs would, they would have a contest, where chefs would propose things. And I think the one that won was this Southern biscuits and gravy. It was a Lay's thing. So they had Greek Town. It was Detroit Greek Town lamb gyro, and then they had New York Reuben. That was another one, which was supposed to be sauerkraut and pastrami, or what flavor. And I was like, oh my god, that's going to be awesome. And it really didn't taste like anything. But that I was super excited about when they did that. But then they didn't keep it around, and it was just a novelty. And so well, we had one flavor. The fun, that is the most fun part about doing this business is kind of coming up with flavor. Thinking about it, and doing it and trying it out in the market. And so the one chip that we used to do was based on a meal I had in a diner in Santa Fe. It was I had green chili enchiladas with the most incredible green chili. It was it was one of those meals where you're just oh my God, I'm going to go. This is so good. I'm going to go.
And it was so good. And so it just kept, in my potato chip mind, I was like, okay, well, maybe we could do a green chili enchilada chip. And we did one. And it was very popular. We're going to try to bring it back. I mean, once we kind of have a little bit of time, I'd like to bring it back for like a season, like for our Funyun, you know, for like
Your fun.
we could put it out on the shelf and be like, oh wow, look at what Route 11's doing, you know. No, I'm so all about just like our appeal is to like kind of common sense people that don't need this, you know, and they just want something good. They just want something good.
You know, people always ask me, do you eat lots of potato chips? You know, and I'm like, I don't eat all of the, you know what I mean? I taste them, but I usually don't eat them. I only eat the potato chips that I think taste good, which are things like people that actually pay attention to the way their potato chips taste and don't try to like get me to buy things just because they're new. Yeah. And of course it's working because I'm buying them, but anyway.
But you won't go back and that's why they only offer it one time because they know it sucks.
Yeah, they know nobody. Yeah. They know nobody's.
Do you know what I mean? But they know somebody's going to buy it just because of the
I swear that I'm the only person that bought.
Are you? No,
I'm the sole person in the U.S. that bought one of those bags. I bet nobody else bought.
No, I bet you there were a few people.
Really?
And, there were a few people out there. So the truth about all these flavors, I don't want to disappoint you. No. And this isn't just about Route 11, but 60% of chip sales are just for regular food. Yeah. But they're going to the next level. Right. And they're conveying an experience that you can find in a bag. Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. That it's not just a bag of chips. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You're having you're feasting on the seafood hot pot or, you know.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like speaking of the seafood hot pot, like that's like when do potato chips become big sellers in China and Asia, first of all? Just the do you think that I don't know. It's just weird. Like I'm just trying to figure. I guess that you're not the person to ask.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I think that. But maybe, and again, this is where Lay's has. I mean, Lay's must have brought potato chips to China.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah,
and then they have.
And then they're like, okay, what can we do? What will sell?
Yeah,
and maybe the chip. In order to sell a chip in China, it's got to taste like. You know, fish. Fermented soybean fond flavor. Yeah. Or it's got to have something on it.
Yeah.
And so, just for sales, because the other flavors wouldn't convey, you know, this means something to people there.
Yeah.
I mean, but I also think that chips are like, it's a personal, I mean, you can have this whole flavor experience by yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
you don't have to cook.
Right. You don't have to cook. You don't have to go out. No. And you know, it's your own little private party.
Right.
And so I think the chip companies know I don't know this I know that there are there are all kinds of profiles of consumers and what they choose and the flavors.
Yeah.
I mean, which are kind of interesting.
Right.
Like type A personalities like potato chips. Suppose type B like pretzels.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. And people that like potato chips are very, I have to say, I mean, they are very kind of protective of their bag. They don't want anybody messing with, they don't like to necessarily share. Yeah, I don't know if you're like that. And you might not be. You don't seem like that.
Yeah.
But we have people come into the factory and they're like, no, these are mine. You know, nobody's getting them, and they're very So there's that mentality. But I know I kind of went off on a tangent about the flavors. I think they are cued into something in our minds, and I think it has to do with comfort.
Comfort, yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know,
and food is always a comfort.
Food is always a comfort. Yeah, and this is the way. Yeah, but I think we over-engineer. I think our foods are over-engineered in this country, and we've lost that just kind of simple pleasure, you know, of eating something really good.
Right.
Man, oh man, that's one heck of a chip. Tastes so big, yeah, I don't need no dip. Riding down the road to potato chip heaven.
Market, Middletown, Virginia.
Thanks for listening, and if you have any questions or comments about what you heard today, please post them to the review section of your podcast player. So if you use Apple Podcasts, you click on the show thumbnail and scroll down to leave a review. And then whatever happens after that is up to you, but hopefully it's nice. You can also leave posts on Instagram at @MemoryChipsPodcast.